Well, hello everyone. Happy Wednesday. That means it's time for another wonderful J Talk. I'm Joshua Michael Harper, joined by my esteemed co-host Jerry One Hero, whatever he wants to be called this week.
That's fine. And again, hello everybody. Thank you for coming out to another week of the J Talk podcast. We greatly appreciate it, and we're looking forward to another episode with another great creator.
You flatter me.
Yeah, we're joined by the ever so popular Whyt Manga. A lot of you probably know him.
Hey guys, thank you guys for having me on the show. It's been happy to be here and can't wait to get into the Grammy stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm excited. I got a lot of questions to ask. Should be a good episode. Really looking forward to it. I want to ask you guys really quick though. You guys read anything good this week? Because I picked up a really good book I want to talk about really quick. But before I do, I want to ask you guys, what have you read this week?
Yeah.
Yeah, stumped you. I stumped you, Jay.
No, you didn't. I didn't want to overtalk. I thought White was gonna go.
Oh no, I have nothing to say.
I picked up a book called Voodoo Hearts by Scott Snyder, the writer of Batman, because I am in the realm of contemplating of writing short stories since I have so many I want to tell versus trying to be a writer and pay for comic books. So I have that. I had picked up the Pictures for Words or Words for Pictures by Brian Michael Bendis as well. So those two I've been delving into, and I'm waiting on my copy of The Alchemist to come in the mail.
Alchemist is really good. I love that book so much.
Yeah, I will say this. I will say, it's almost, it doesn't make sense to almost like throw a little shout out, right? Because there is just to support other independent creators, working their ass off and stuff like that. I think are actually doing pretty cool work. So I read like the first 3 chapters of a comic called Remedium Plus, and the first 3 chapters are available. It's kind of like a part of the afternoon WebEx thing with Saturday. So yeah, I read that, and that was pretty cool. I like the artwork, I like the distinct style of it. It's kind of like a horror, action, comedy kind of thing going on, spooky vibes, and I thought the concept and everything about it was pretty cool so far.
Awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely. What was it called again? Remedium
Plus, like all the, the big supporter of all the comics that are on Saturday AM and Afternoon WebEx, and that's one of the latest ones that I really like.
Remedium Plus, gotcha.
Yeah,
Awesome.
the plus is not actually spelled out. It's just like plus, but if you go to the site, you see it.
Gotcha.
Awesome, yeah. I want to talk about not independent at all. I got the 4th book of Tokyo ESP in English, and anyone who knows me knows that I swear by this book. It's pretty much my Bible. I love it. Love the art style. I got it today, and as soon as we're done with this podcast, I'm just going to shotgun it, and I'm going to stay up all night reading it, and I'm going to love it. I've been waiting all day for it, so I'm really excited for that. So yeah, why don't we go ahead and get into it? Jay, you said you wanted to ask him a couple questions, or do you want me to go first?
Oh, you can go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So coming up with this podcast, White's pretty popular. I don't mean to flatter you, but White's been on a lot of podcasts, and people always ask him a lot of this similar questions. A lot of this. White has the story Apple Black, and I'm going to ask you about that, but I want to ask you some other questions later on, so be prepared for it to get a little personal. So Apple Black, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, Apple Black, first?
Apple Black is basically just a story about a young boy, Samuel, who is kind of burdened with the world calling him this savior, this trinity, and he's supposed to prevent certain tragic events prophesied from happening, and while at the same time struggling with the disappearance of his father. So it's kind of like the story's kind of based off of like sorcery, magic. It's very action based, very shonen. Very shonen inspired, the shonen style of making manga, and I'll say that if I were to throw a little pitch out, it'll be like, let me see, Passion of the Christ meets shonen manga elements basically, but little things sprinkled here and there, a bunch of cool characters, a bunch of diverse characters, and it's action packed, and that's my baby.
Awesome, yeah. How long have you been working on Apple Black, if you don't mind me asking? Just so people know how much work has gone into it.
Um, it's gone through a lot of phases and a lot of development and things like that. But from like its true genesis, like the real beginning of everything, I'll say uh, 10 years.
Fair enough. Awesome. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember I found you. I think when I first saw your work, it was when it was Strawberry.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It went through a lot of phases. We call it like in the beginning of everything, I was still like learning a lot of stuff, and there were a lot of things that were new to me, and there were a lot of things that I was naive about, and maybe a little bit ignorant. But it was still, the phase where I was doing a lot of research and trying to improve as an artist on all fronts. So, whatever it be, improving my art style, storytelling techniques, and improving the story itself and everything. So the name of the actual comic it's had like so many names, right? But when it was put on the internet, its name at the time was Strawberry Black, and then I removed it and it was like just Black, and then it was Apple Black, and it was funny because while it was Strawberry Black, funny thing is during that period, I like to call it the Strawberry Black era. I almost think of it as a different comic book at the same time. But during that time, my style, like for those people who, my style usually gets compared to a lot of other comic styles, especially Bleach. But at that time, like that was the peak. Like right now, I don't really get that. I don't really get those comments anymore. People kind of see my style from me. But once in a while, you get a comment like, oh, Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, and whatever. But that time was like really, really Bleach, right? And I was not like, and that's what it was. I was not even like denying it or anything like that, because it was during that time where I was kind of naive about a couple things, and I didn't see the problem with it. Not that there's really a problem with it, but it wasn't something I did consciously. It wasn't like a choice of mine. But at the time, my style was very similar to it, and not like similar to it and on the same level, like as good as it. No, it wasn't as good, and it's still very similar to it, and it almost came off very fanboyish at the same time. So it was not just very similar to Bleach, and then the name was Strawberry Black, which it translated to if you
Ichigo.
translate it to Japanese, it's kind of like it almost says Ichigo Kuro, So
Right.
I just thought that was funny because most of that stuff, went over my head. I wasn't really thinking about stuff like that, but yeah, the comic was gone through a lot of phases and gone through a lot of development and improvements over the years.
Awesome. So I'm gonna ask you a question if you don't mind. So when you're working now, when you're creating your comic, like, is it still? I assume like at some point you saw that, as you said, you were naively and you saw that. Do you have to like work away from trying to draw like a shonen stuff like Bleach and like Naruto? Do you kind of have to focus on like I'm not gonna try to do that style? Do you try to do your own style? Like what do you try to do? If you don't mind me asking.
I think all like shonen comics have certain elements to them, right? They kind of put them in that genre of being shonen. So my style now just kind of takes from that, but I don't have to worry about that stuff anymore because now I'm just like drawing freely. So I'm at the point where I feel like my style is not like the other comics anymore, and it kind of has a voice of its own. So usually I don't worry about that stuff anymore. The comic will still always have the same shonen elements that are from a visual standpoint at least
That influenced it.
that are similar to almost every other shonen comic out there. And at the same time, I'm inspired by other stuff apart from manga. So there are other influences that are within my work that may or may not go over certain people's heads. So at this level, I don't really worry about that stuff. I don't really worry about that stuff anymore.
Yep, fair enough.
Well, that's actually pretty much a big deal because a lot of people will try to claim ownership of a lot of things and not really try to at least admit or say like where they even gain some influence from. But in reality, you start to see people's personality through their work. So you kind of get to know them through and what they'll say and how they speak or whatever and how they see things through their work. So what you're saying now, it's like, well, now you're really just getting me. Like all that influence or naivety is gone. You're getting me and my story now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you know, you look at my work, you would like some of the obviously comics, especially like the mainstream shonen comics, they are part of that influence. So you will see influence from there, but it's still like everybody drawing influence from that same pool of what makes a shonen comic a shonen comic.
Yep.
So yeah, that's, you know, right now I don't worry about that stuff anymore. What I do, what I create, and how I create it, it's kind of like me. I don't have to worry about it. And, you know, there are things that I do now that no other comic does, but I will still be within that shonen space just because of the feel of the comic. But there's certain things that I do that no Japanese artist does, or no artist does. There's certain techniques I use that, you know, nobody else really does, that are my own, and like I like it because I like
your
it.
signatures, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to hear. So, I wanted to ask you, like I said, everyone asks you about Apple Black, and we got that out of the way. I wanted to ask you about some of your other comic ideas, because I've been following you for a while, and I think probably one of my favorite pieces I've seen you do is a piece for a story you mentioned called Algorithms.
Yeah.
So, I assume, as a creator, you know, we're all in the same boat. We have all these story ideas, and it's really kind of hard to focus on more than one. You kind of got to put all your effort into one.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, like, are these? I assume these stories are stories that are still going to happen. So, do you mind talking about like the story for Algorithms? Because I'm curious. It's pulled up right here. It's like a piece about this guy on the ground covered in blood, and you see in the mirror in the background there's a bunch of mobsters behind him.
Yeah. It was at the time, you know, coming up with this story. It's one of those stories that, you know, you just have an idea, right? And, you know, you have like some visuals of how certain things are gonna look, and you just want to create. I just wanted to create some kind of art piece for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so far, it's very, very underdeveloped. If I try to create it right now, there will be a lot of loopholes, a lot of things I'll need to fix or improve on, and I'll probably change a couple things looking back, because, you know, because this was a while back. This is a while back. But the idea was kind of behind, you know, had to do with like computer programs, and, you know, there's a certain algorithm that does something, and you know, all like the mobs want it, and the main character is kind of like this programmer. I think I called him Church. He's this programmer that's kind of in charge of that, and he's one of those things where, is he the one that actually created the program? Is he the one that, you know, it was very, very complicated. But at the end of the day, I wanted it to be kind of like a mobster kind of storyline with humor in it, but like really gritty Deadpool kind of humor, and it'll be action packed. Even though he's not that much of a fighter, there'll be kind of like characters that kind of take those roles. You know, have stuff. There'll be like he was supposed to have some kind of relationship with like one of like a girl that's kind of like a daughter of a really famous mobster kind of thing going on. So it was one of those really, really underdeveloped ideas, but I liked where it was headed. But there was just not enough time to actually put that together, and because of Apple Black and, you know, whatever was going on in my life at the time. So there are a lot of stories like this, Algorithms. There was another one called Girland. There was there's another one, Ghost Point, and all these. And most of the time, I tried to make sure this, like, the stories are usually. It's not even me trying anything, but these stories are usually very different from one another. I think Gerland was kind of wanted to do some kind of dystopian future kind of thing that was influenced by the Civil War. And I had another one, Oibo, that had to do with also kind of historical. That had to do with the colonization of some African countries and things like that. But most of them always kind of tie in with that shonen style and maybe have a little humor here and there. And most of the stories, they're just there. There's another one that I don't think I've ever brought up, unless I can't remember, called Sleepwalker, and that's one I was really, really excited for. But most of it's one of those things that if I ever get time to do it, if maybe I might go, Apple Black may go on hiatus at some point, maybe so I can just create maybe at least like one shots or first chapters of these or something like that, just to jumpstart and bring them to life to some degree. But they're not dead; they're still in my head. It's just most of them are very underdeveloped. I think Apple Black is easily the most developed, and the biggest story, and the longest, and in some degree, it's probably the strongest to me, and it's why I'm still in the Apple Black boat. But yeah, they exist, and I'm excited to just the thought of maybe creating it. It's one of those things that maybe even in the future, depending on how successful things get, I may be even able to hire other artists to create those, and not just be like a writer behind the scenes kind of thing. So I think about them, but I can't think about them too much.
No, I understand the feeling. I think we all have those ideas, those little little babies we got in our heads that we want to turn into something at some point. Unfortunately, being indie and having to kind of create everything yourself, fund it all out of pocket, it makes it a lot harder. Yeah.
Especially when you make sneak peek previews of heroes floating above another person,
Yeah, no, I like the feel of these stories and these ideas. No, you should go after that. Again, I really love the algorithms artwork. I like the idea of like the mirror and stuff. I thought that was really cool. But no, it's cool to get that from you. Again, I wanted to do something that most people don't ask you about. I've been following, like I said, I think Jay and I have both been following you for a long time, so I don't want to ask the same questions as people.
Yeah, cool to hear. I know if I have a friend that sometimes I tell some of these ideas to. Like I have a friend that he basically knows the whole story of Apple Black from at least the key points. So I usually talk to him about this kind of stuff, and he also really likes algorithms.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, yeah, no, that's cool to hear. Now Jay, I'm gonna throw it to you now. So it's your turn. Take the ball. Take the physical energy. You're the host now for the next few minutes.
Take it away.
Cool. Well, my question off the bat would be, why did you choose a manga versus a comic? Or is there really no difference in your eyes?
I think maybe the question would be why did I go? Because I guess I'll start by saying that I think fundamentally, essentially, they're both the same thing.
Okay, that's why I said is there a difference.
Yeah,
okay.
I think they're both the same thing. It's just certain traditions and ideologies of ways of based on where they're from, where they're created, their creators, production, and things like that. It kind of makes them look very, very different. It kind of differentiates them. It's kind of like I kind of put it. The analogy I like to use is kind of like football and soccer, right? Not American football, but football as it's called in Europe, right, or basically anywhere else in the world. And in America it's called soccer, but it's essentially the same game, But the way the soccer is kind of produced and presented here is different from the way it's done everywhere else.
Absolutely.
If you look at the Premier League and the way the English kind of put their own domestic league together, and the way MLS does it here, MLS kind of has this style similar to every other American sport. The way the NBA does things, the MLB does things, and the teams play Western Conference, Eastern Conference, and then you have the playoffs and things like that. Like Europe, England, Italy, Spain, Portugal, they don't do that. They just have one league, right? And you play a certain amount of games. You play each team twice, home and away, and you get relegated to a lower division of teams representing certain places in the country and things like that. So my point is, the sport is essentially, the game is essentially the same, but little things here and there that make it seem very different, but it's essentially the same thing, and it's called two different things: soccer or football.
Right. Okay.
That's how I kind of look at manga and comics and manhwa and so on and so forth.
Yeah, webtoon and all of that. You're right.
Yeah.
So then, oh, go ahead, Josh.
I just wanted to say I wanted to build on White's point a little bit before we move on. I kind of agree with you on that. Like, we call them different things, but I think in the end, the idea of webcomics has kind of completely changed things. I kind of think of manga kind of like bourbon. For something to be, for a whiskey to be bourbon, it's got to be from Kentucky. But for something to be a manga, it's kind of got to be from Japan. That's kind of how I view it. Like it or not, I think that's just the situation.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can look at it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that more or less, in actuality, there's not much difference between bourbon and other whiskeys.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's one of those things where I understand to some degree. I kind of agree with you because I understand why the names are different. It helps differentiate the two, and like to allow someone maybe understand what you're saying better. If you say manga, they kind of just float to Japan automatically. So I understand why. I understand like the importance in a way of having the two names be existent. But like at the end of the day, they're basically the same thing. I think manga actually translates to comic strips or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but I think so. So, and I think going back to your question of why manga and not comics. So I'm guessing why the Eastern style and not the Western style.
Yes. Because I mean, honestly, between the biggest difference between manga and comics, in my eyes, would be the themes and messages that they convey versus Western versus East. That would be the biggest difference for me. But yeah, what made you go with the Eastern style?
I guess I just thought it just appealed to me more. I felt like with manga, because prior to manga, I was big into like the X-Men and Spider-Man and all that stuff. But there was something about manga that it always had storylines that were very just like you said, those differences. It really stood out to me, and I think that's what made me gravitate towards it a whole lot more because of how different it was. And also comics, from a production standpoint, to really have that Western. I mean, you can have black and white comics. You can have. There's several comics out there they're like a one-man team. But usually, when you have like those really professional-looking, badass comics that have they usually have a team. And I was a one-man army. I saw manga as something easier for me to tackle and grasp and be able to produce on my own. And those were like the early reasons why I just gravitated towards manga. And then the mangas that I've read a lot of comics, Spider-Man, all that stuff, and it never really pushed me to want to create it as much. Like after watching certain series, like I almost felt compelled to create my own, and I didn't really get that from any other forms. So I guess those are my reasons. It's pretty vague. Sometimes I ask myself the same thing, but at the same time, while I'm creating my work, I feel like I made the right choice.
Right, that's fair, and it leads up to the next question, which was, what does comic or manga making mean to you? Like, does it have a special meaning to you? Like the quote I like to use is, "Do you have desire for fame, or the desire to remember the name?" Like, are you doing it for you, or are you doing it for other reasons? Like, what does it mean to you?
I think everybody at on some level wants to make a living off comics. Like if comics is what you want to do, maybe not comics. Make a living off doing what you want to do.
Yes.
Right? Make a living off your passion, right? So that's like a factor. But I think what really pushed me over, because I used to be like a computer science major, sorry, right? And I switched into a minor in college. and I became a fine art major, and I did some. That's when I started doing like research in comics, and I wanted to make comics. And I think what really pushed me was actually the love for storytelling as a whole. And I had this story in my head that I just felt that I needed to tell, and that's what I feel has been like the biggest motivator for me to actually even continue. Because I could have created comics and just had it as a hobby and updated when I wanted to update and stuff like that. But I'm actually trying to make something out of all of this, build an audience myself from scratch, and do all this stuff, do all the research I need to do to kind of get Apple Black and all my projects to the level that I want it to be.
Okay.
So I think the love for storytelling for me has always been big. So I'm in love with comics, but I'm also in love with animation and character design and things like that. So I knew that I had to be in that field somehow, tell my story, and manga just seemed like the best means at the time.
Right, the launch platform. Right. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. What about? Okay. So Jay, I'm gonna throw that question towards you. Like, what would you define your style, like the style of Sebas and Pasha?
What do I define? Well,
Would you
it's
define
funny.
that? Go
Well,
ahead.
because Projok is more of he is the Eastern style between the two. I mean, him being the inker and toner of Infinite, he has the Eastern style being from Thailand, and him and his assistants, they clearly show that their style is of that essence. Whereas Sebastian, I learned that through him. The other person I worked with was Frederick FF69 on DeviantArt, but Frederick Francis, and uh, freaking Rocker Rabbit was another one, but their Spanish style. They have a Spanish style of the manga, so manga influenced their style, but the Spanish style is where the characters are proportioned differently, and they have the thinner faces that lead to a pointy chin, because that's the characteristic that's known in Spain. So it's it's crazy how you can tell that there's a difference, because if I didn't have Projok finishing off the pages over Sebastian's artwork, you would see that Spanish style influence, because even like FF69 and Rocker Rabbit knew that was Sebastian's work, and those two are from Spain. So that was really cool to see that they picked up on it. They're like, oh, that's Sebastian's work, easy. And I thought that was funny, and that's when I learned what the difference was from even Eastern style manga interpretation to Spanish. I didn't know Spanish had a style.
No, but the funny thing, listening to you right now, me personally, when I look at stuff like that, when I just see the styles, I just see them, just like you. Like as you're talking right now, I'm thinking to myself, is there really a Spanish style? But like for me, the way I see it, I just see it as a style, right? However you got to that style, most of the styles, they might have something again that kind of puts them under some kind of umbrella. But like you said, maybe you're putting them under this like Spanish umbrella, and I can't really speak to that because I don't really know. But personally, when I look at all these styles, I just see them as styles. Now, whatever influenced you to get to that point, whether it's subconsciously or consciously to get to that point where okay, you have this and this is your recognizable style. I don't, it could be a lot. It could be lots of things. You could be from Spain, but you could be maybe inspired by say there's a Greek style. You can be inspired by it. You can be inspired by that, and maybe that's just how you roll. And people kind of come up with their own unique styles. Some might be similar to others, but they're essentially different. So basically, what I'm saying is, personally, I just see them as styles. I almost don't put them under okay, this is the Spanish style, even though that exists in some fields. And the example I'll give is there was a guy from Spain, at least last I checked, he is from Spain, and his work kind of reminds me of, same way some people say some, you can smell some like Bleach influence off of my work. You can you can get like some influence from, say, Bakuman off of his, and his name is Bolust. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Bolust, but he's on DeviantArt, and I think he's from Spain. But his artwork is very, very different from what you may call the style you just put under that Spanish umbrella. So I just feel like
Right.
people get inspired from whatever. People get however you get to your final piece, final style. You know, it could be a million things.
True.
Um, I just see it as a style. And so Beloved being from Spain and his work look, and by the way, stunning stuff. Like this dude's artwork is off the chain, basically. Y'all should really check him out. But yeah, I just see it as styles. Everyone just has their style. The dude's from Spain, and it looks nothing like Sebastian's or any the FF. I forgot what it was. FF.
Yeah, FF69, right. And that's what I said too. I'm like, I never really seen it until they said, "Oh, well, that's just how we draw." And I'm like, "What do you mean we?" And the three of them were like, "Well, that's kind of how we draw over here." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay. Well, thanks for enlightening me. I didn't really see the difference. I just thought that was your style, drawing with characters like that." Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, going back to what I was kind of saying was I kind of think of it like globalization has kind of taken away a specific style. Like if you go through websites, like indie comic websites like Tapastic, Snack G's, Webtoons, you'll find a lot of comics that look like they're not from this part of the world, that look like they're from another part of the world or another part of what not the style you would be thinking of. And I think part of that is like globalization has kind of leveled it out. Like you see so many different styles on Tapastic. From if you were to just take like an area of the world and look at the styles, all these different artists have been influenced by all these other artists on a global level.
Yep.
Like we all grew up with the internet. we all even when we were going through developmental periods as we were getting more and more into art. In the 90s and the 80s, as more and more stuff started coming over from all across the world, people started developing different styles, and it's kind of like accents. Most people don't have accents. Statistically, they're dying out, but it's not because people aren't like using them. It's because you're being exposed to so many different languages and accents all the time that there's a drain on the actual accent itself, and eventually everything kind of all levels out to be a normal language. That's kind of how I view manga and comics. Eventually, I think the style of manga will be distinguishable as something that's from Japan specifically, but the style itself will be seen all over the world.
That makes sense.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jay. Go ahead.
Well, no, it's cool. Get it how you live. Moving on. So, with your story being an action story, what's your favorite thing about creating an action story? In general, or would you say your story is more of like a fantasy adventure with action in it?
Well, I think if there's action, yeah.
Like, is it like I mean, we're not saying like I know there are some stories like One Punch Man that was heavily dependent on action per se,
Mhm.
and I mean you haven't really spammed everybody with 9 chapters of action upon action upon action upon action. Like,
You're right.
so that's why I'm like, well, okay, well, if I just remove that part, because that does make sense now that I say that, what is your favorite part about creating an action story? I'll just leave it at that.
Just for the record, I understand what you're saying, anyways, but
No, yeah, of course. I didn't want to, yeah.
I guess it's not so much the action; it's just me creating my work, and also it's also fun, getting feedback from people, and kind of when you write something and you plan that the idea the plan is that the audience is supposed to feel a certain way, or they're supposed to think this, or maybe I'm fooling them to think this, but this is actually going to happen. And when I get like feedback, and they are actually they are where I want them to be. Basically, I'm setting up a trap, and everyone's falling for it. I always think that's lovely, but it's not so much that really has nothing to do with action per se. It's just the storytelling itself. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so I'm just having fun with the storytelling. But action, from a visual standpoint, I guess that's the best thing about it for me. Just looking at it and seeing the detail and plotting like a fight scene, doing like choreography and putting things together and watching how it all falls down. I just, I guess I just have. It's one of those things. It's just part of comic creating as a whole that I like. That I don't think comp action per se really stands out as much as, say, maybe a successful comedic scene or something like that. So it's not that I like action. I just like good. I don't know how to, I don't know the best way.
It's your style.
Yeah, I don't know the best way to answer this question, but while making action scenes, I guess they are, because adrenaline filled, action packed. It gets everybody all pumped up, and
Because it's important to have weight to action in the story.
yeah, you build to it. It's not just action. But to answer the question, I guess I don't really know exactly what it is. I'm just more in the moment of just telling a story and putting everything together, rather than focus on, because it's an action story. Maybe this action scene is more significant than everything else. I know that certain parts of my certain people in my audience, or people that read Apple Black, look forward to action scenes. I mean, I look forward to action scenes because they're flashy. It's art. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where, you from a visual standpoint, it's just pleasing. I'd admit to say that action scenes are one of the most visually pleasing. Like, they make you feel things when they
They're
go.
stimulating.
You know what I mean? When the Hulk smashed the hell out of Loki in Avengers, like, there very little action scene, little comedy in there, but it evokes certain emotions. So I guess action scenes evoke more emotion than some other scenes. But I can see somebody making an argument for like a dramatic scene. It's all over the place, really. But action scenes are fun because they have a lot of detail, and your adrenaline, like, it evokes that little boy in you. Just see someone's head get smashed in or stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you're still telling the story. That action scene is to push the story. So it comes down to the storytelling aspect of it. So what's the fun part of telling the story? Just like I said before,
The storytelling part.
yeah, it's kind of like,
you did answer the question by saying that.
it's kind of like just setting that trap, watching everybody fall for it, and it's like pranking everybody successfully.
Right. It does and I know you did speak on you said your audience. Does the feedback matter to you? Like, do you take it in consideration, or do you just kind of like brush it off and say, whatever, it's my story, I don't care? Or
I mean, that's if the feedback's bad. But no, serious. I listen to it just in case somebody says something I didn't think of. But with or without it, I have a plan and I'm executing.
Okay.
Fair enough.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay.
Once in a while, people have certain criticisms about things here and there, and
well, yeah, it's very mixed. Yeah.
Yeah, and some people say they'll say things that are, at the end of the day, to me, assumptions that probably stem from the idea that I'm very new to this, and I'm still viewed as kind of like an amateur in some regards. So there isn't that assurance that that I know what I'm doing, right? So people see something and automatically assume that I'm going to fuck it up. Can I curse here?
Yeah.
Go for it.
No. Nicholas and Mikhail took that off the record. Oh, when Mikhail took that off the record last, like, 2 podcasts ago.
Yeah,
So, people kind of like assume that I'm gonna mess it up or mess something up, rather than just going along with a ride, and at least wait for me to mess it up before you say something. And so I think that that plays a role, that the fact that I'm not some worldwide known artist that they can trust, and you see it in stuff like as a wrestling fan, because I know that from a story standpoint they have, like, I don't trust them to do certain things right.
Heck no.
Right. So even though I don't know what's going to happen next, because of their track record, I automatically sometimes I'm actually cooling off nowadays, but I automatically assume that they're going to mess it up. So I think that's like a similar thing that that's going on with some of the criticism I get.
Yeah, it's an infamous case of you being damned if you do, damned if you don't, and
Yeah, and
whichever spectrum you fall
like
into.
I've seen things like if I do something that somebody might be extremely familiar with, they'd be like, oh, I've seen this before, right? And if I do something really, really unique, they'd be like, the same person can go, oh, I've never seen that before. That's probably a bad idea. You shouldn't have done that. You should have done the cliche thing. But if you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
I think we both agree gold in there.
It's like, and at the same time with criticism, I take criticism. Like I said, I listen to everything just in case someone says something that sticks, right? But I also keep track of who is talking.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be a comic creator to have something valid to say, but there are people online that really have nothing to say.
Fair enough. Okay, so moving on, I wanted to talk to you. This is the other big thing I think we wanted to talk about with you was YouTube, being a YouTuber, doing YouTube things.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna ask you, how did you get started doing YouTube? Like, at what point were you just one day like, you know what, I'm gonna record myself drawing this, I'm gonna put it on, like. And what let me rephrase this. What are some things you wish you knew when you started doing YouTube, and like what would you want to tell people now that are starting it?
Well, I think YouTube has changed over the years compared to when I started. I think just to answer the first question before I get to this, the current question, before I started, there were people. There was a group called the Rona Project. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them at all.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And there were actually a bunch of guys who oh yeah, I'm making a comic, I have a channel. So I think that gave me the idea of building an audience, because originally before YouTube and before a lot of social media, it was I'm gonna have this idea and I want so company I want to get published here, or I want to do this here, but you kind of felt reliant on people. So I just kind of was slowly adopting the idea of being an independent creator and owning Apple Black and doing what I wanted. You know what I mean? So that really appealed to me. But I knew one of the hurdles would be to build an audience for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw these guys, and I saw some people, like the Rona Project, building an audience, building a loyal fan base. And 9,000 subscribers at that time was a big deal. So, so I just looked at that and it appealed to me. So I thought, all right, this would be a good idea. And then I looked at the art, and I looked at my art, and I knew that if I just tweaked a couple things here and there, if you like Rona Project, you would probably at least a certain percentage of that audience will like what I have to say. So I thought, it kind of put in my head that, oh man, I can build an audience with not just YouTube but social media, because I started looking at other things like DeviantArt and every other thing that was available at the time. And so I just kept, I just started, see what happened. And over time, I looked at the idea of doing tutorials and helping other people and seeing that, okay, other people that want to create, they can come see your stuff, and you can, plug in your work on the side, so they figure out what you're doing, and if they like it, they stick around. So basically, I just kind of adopted that philosophy, looked at people like Mark Crilly, and saw that if he can get that many subscribers, that means there is an audience. There is an audience here, right? So if there's an audience here, that means it's worth a shot. And that that's kind of like what pushed me towards YouTube, just to give it a try. Because if you have, say, 2 million people subscribe to your channel, and you put out a book, right? Even if it's just 7% of that audience that buy that book, that's a good amount of people you've reached. So, that's where my mind was at, and I just kept working towards it. And kind of doing a lot of research on YouTube as a whole and how to build a successful channel. So I basically did a lot of research. I studied a lot of other channels and try and figure out what worked for them, and try to adopt some of their philosophy, apply it to mine. Still try to stand out because there are a lot of there are many channels like mine on YouTube that create artwork, create so and so. But
Tons.
my channel, at least I like to believe that my channel kind of stands out from the pack because my work is more, I think, is more shonen than any of them. So that's just not as a bad thing or something that makes me better, but just something that makes me stand out from it, right? There are a lot of successful artists like, say, Bailey. You guys know Bailey J, who used to be Zed Kitty Zed at the time. Bailey, her artwork is very cartoony, and it looks like something that you see on like Cartoon Network, right? So
Yeah.
Basically, I was looking for something that'll make me stand out from the pack, and at least not too much, so that I'll be able to feed off that the same audience that's already been built on YouTube.
So it's not about like the confidence with you. It's more about I just want to be me. I want to have my own signature, my own style, my own stamp of being Whyt Manga and nobody else.
So what do you mean by confidence?
No, I'm not saying like you're not focused on confidence. Like everybody's already in their own confidence. Like that's not what's important to you. It's important about your style. And it's about your stamp, your thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So and again, it's also part of the whole. There are a lot of people that say, oh, the videos you create and the idea. Basically, what I used to think about the channels, the comic channels that came before me. There are people that kind of say the same thing to me as well. So it's almost like inspiring them and them sometimes motivating me to kind of keep going. And it's kind of, in a way, is a circle. And so the idea of me wanting to tell that story, YouTube also plays a role, because now I'm not just telling the story of Apple Black, but I'm also telling a story of me trying to get to that point, right? So it's almost me documenting me from day one to where I want to be. So it's almost two different stories at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go back to the question. Like, what are some things that you wish you knew starting YouTube? Would you want to tell yourself something? Like, would you want to tell past Whyt something?
Well, see that it's weird. It's hard to answer because past Whyt was dealing with a different YouTube than the YouTube that currently exists right now. But back then, if I could change anything, I'd say just have better quality videos, because my sound, even till today, my sound is not the best, but just have better quality videos, upload at a regular basis, and never stop. Because back then there was like a year where I didn't upload anything. In like the year before Manga Magazine, I was nowhere. I was nowhere to be found. So that year killed me. Everybody left me. Like there were some people that I had like similar subscriber counts with, That year killed me, and everybody like kind of left me behind. But I don't really worry about that kind of stuff too much. But that year, looking back, I should have stayed on and kept on creating work. That's like the, I guess, the biggest thing I'll tell past Whyt, right? But I think what you're kind of asking is, do I have advice for people who want to start YouTube channels?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. First off, start. But if you go, make sure, don't be honest with yourself, and don't. Because I see, sometimes you see people create channels, and they say they're gonna do all the first video, is them saying all the stuff that they're going to do, and they don't have a video to like next 4 months or something, or they never have a video again. Kind of be honest with yourself if this is even what you want to do at all. Be consistent, at least as consistent as you can, because sometimes I need to take my own advice. But
no, I understand the consistency thing. I think that's like
yeah,
the hardest thing to
be
struggle
consistent
with.
and always strive to improve on all fronts, whether it be video quality, your artwork, the artwork itself, and study everybody else.
Fair enough.
Look at what works and try to figure out how that can work for you in your way. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but stuff like that. There isn't with YouTube. YouTube is another big thing is connections. Collaborations are a big deal. So sometimes YouTube, the advice. You can go to YouTube and look for advice, and there's always going to be someone with different opinions and different ideas, and you can mix and match. But sometimes networking is all you need.
Yeah.
Knowing the right people, and they can help you out, and things can change for you. I've seen people, and sometimes luck. It's luck. I don't want to give advice like I have all the answers, because I don't. It's luck sometimes, and you see someone who has like 5,000 subscribers today, and something happens tomorrow, and everything changes. And it's not like, yeah, I'm somewhat popular, but I'm really not that popular if you really look at it. So at the same time, I'm still learning. I'm still looking for ways to improve on all fronts. I'm still trying to do the things that I'm saying here, and there isn't any like concrete right answer. But I think some of the things I've said would kind of put you at least on the right path. The little tricks here and there. I don't say tricks, but just tips here and there with putting together a professional-looking, effective YouTube channel. But those are things that you can research on your own and just pay attention to, and stay consistent with. That would kind of help you along the way as well.
Yeah. No, I think the consistency thing is the most important thing to remember.
Yeah.
It's been something I have to struggle with, because I had some financial problems, and I had to slow down production on my comic, and that sucks. I'm not complaining, but I'm just saying that. But that's like the worst feeling.
Yeah.
And what that means, though, is I have to choose. Do I want to have a consistent posting schedule? Like so much thought has to go into how I want to release the comic now that it's kind of been in a slow withdrawal.
Yeah, I think sometimes with my channel, I'm still figuring out what kind of schedule I want, because I'm trying to pick out the best day to upload, trying to pick out, come up with a good schedule so that if people know that, okay, every Saturday morning they're gonna get a video, you're more likely to get more views then, because you're kind of training them to come to your channel. That's just like channel 101. It's not like a comic YouTube channel thing. That's just like it's just like a YouTube thing.
That's consistency 101 too.
Yeah, It's not like a comic book thing. It's an everything thing. Basically, like a deadline to not a deadline, maybe like a release date for maybe the certain amount of pages you want to release. If it's like a traditional webcomic style format thing, where they come to the website and they know that pages are going to be there. You guys understand what I'm saying,
Right?
So but right now with my channel, I'm kind of struggling to pick a date. Initially, I'm thinking Thursday, Saturday, but there have been some times I would upload on the weirdest time and get like some of the best results. So, I'm still playing around, looking at analytics, studying your analytics and things like that, and trying to pick the best approach. But basically what I'm saying is even I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people will they'll flock, like I know a lot of people probably did flock to, Mark Crilly, thinking that he had all the answers to, like, in his back pocket of a secret formula he can mail everybody and they could drink, and then overnight they'd be to his level. So I can imagine how that how that could transpire in some people's eyes to where they're like, oh man, there's got to be a way, there's got to be some secret, because we talked about that recently. Like there's like I follow a guy named Dan Levisi, and he does Last Man Standing, and people think that just he started that overnight and just became an instant, famous person. It's like, no, he spent 7 years going through, hell and back before he even got to this point, and he still don't even know how he got there. So
I mean, if you look at it, I think we stick with the Mark Riley example. His channel has been there since early '09 or late '08. So that's how many years? That's like 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not 8 years of that's just 8 years of YouTube.
Yeah.
Many
people. Yeah, I'm with you on this one. People don't realize Mark Curley worked his butt off his entire life. He didn't just one day start a YouTube channel and he was the first guy to do it. He did it all before he did YouTube.
So there's like, a lot of stuff that people don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's a lot that goes behind it. Again, with Mark Curley, like he was Japan. He was in all these other countries, working on all these other stories with people, being assistants and being an assistant to a lot of different people. He learned a lot, and then that's when he started doing YouTube. I'm not saying that you gotta have that level of skill doing YouTube or being even a content creator. But I think learning the principles. No one has all the answers, because even Mark Curley, who did all that stuff, doesn't have all the answers. He's able to advise people, but
people don't understand also that what worked for one person may not work for everybody else. So.
Exactly. Yeah. No. So. Yeah, I think the most important thing though for me is like consistency. Yeah. I like being able to know. I don't care how many. Like I follow a lot of just comics that publish at one page a week, and I'm fine with that. That's perfect speed for me because at least they're like, all right, effort. They're putting effort in on a consistent basis. I don't even care if they have them all pre-made and they're gonna be uploading them at a certain schedule. I don't care as long as they're doing something every week. That's perfect for me, man.
Yeah.
I got a question for you, Jay. You're trying to start a YouTube channel. What are you finding out?
Personally, just like how he said, when you got to be realistic with yourself, I set out with the sole purpose of doing it because I really enjoy it, and hopefully in hopes that it will give people a connection to me. Because like Josh and you and a lot of the other people that have the benefit of being in a hangout with me and talk to me on a day-to-day basis to hear my soapbox preaching or my inspirational quotes and all of my talk and passion for storytelling and just me being genuinely me. I don't have that luxury to spread myself out across the world for everybody to see. So I just hope that that YouTube channel serves as my purpose for my manifesto of creatively looking to inspire the world through my eyes and become a pillar of light for all dreamers. So there's people out there that are probably going on the same path as me, and I just hope that with this channel it reaches those people. Like I've actually got for the first video I got a couple of one of my childhood best friend. I never thought he'd ever pay attention to that. He saw it and he even posed a question for me to do in one of the vlogs later on. And I was like, that's crazy. It worked. It worked. Success. So yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you. You having trouble? You having trouble with anything? Like with YouTube, what's the thing that's most frustrating to you?
Me?
Yeah.
Nothing. Well, just trying to figure out the best way to expose it to people, because there's only so many ways you can really expose a YouTube channel or a YouTube video to people, and there's no way you can ever just pinpoint the exact time to post it and post it here on Twitter and post it there on there, because everybody's got different schedules on how they create in life. Like Whyt Manga's a vampire. He's always on late in the night. So he's like the prime example. You post at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you better be lucky he sees something if he's following you. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But Josh, you go to sleep early too, so it's like if they don't, so it's just like I really don't try to think about that. I just try to focus on how you guys say being consistent and making sure I follow through with it, because eventually the people that do miss it, maybe it'll come back around and get to them. So I really don't have any. I've been doing my own independent webcomic with Infinite the Journey for the past 2.5 years now. I'm over frustration that happened the first 6 months of me doing that, and the first year of me saying I'm quitting, I'm done with this. So at this point, I'm just being creatively foolish, and I don't care the results.
I think YouTube, like that phase, that the early staging of YouTube, where you're figuring out you upload a video, 0 views.
Yep.
Oh, we've all had that moment.
Oh man, I remember vividly when I had like six subscribers for the longest time. And the funny thing is, being on YouTube for a while and kind of seeing it go through certain stages and evolve to what it is today. Back in the day, I believe that it was more like a lot of people have put money into YouTube. A lot of Google's brought it out there. A lot of you go to YouTube now and it's Vivo and Jimmy Fallon. And, it's more difficult to get exposure now. It's more difficult to get exposure now without any networking than it was before, in my opinion. Because before, you had there were like YouTube charts and daily charts. If you upload the video daily, you see how it's doing. Like there were more avenues for people to discover you than there are today, in my opinion. Sometimes people that even subscribe to you, because I'm subscribed to a bunch of channels, right? But I have never once looked at my subscription box to say, oh, this person uploaded, let me go to their channel. I usually just remember that okay, I'm subscribed to this channel and I like their content. Let me see if they've uploaded anything out, because nothing actually comes to me. There are a lot of, it's become a little more complicated to the smaller channels to get popular. Nowadays, the popular channels always have some kind of trend about them, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just, my point is, now it's a whole lot more difficult than it was before. It's kind of because that's kind of why I was looking back again, if I was going to say anything different, if I was going to tell past Whyt to do anything, all the videos that I'm uploading now, I wish I uploaded them like 3 years ago or something like that. Then we would have seen different results, because that was a different YouTube. And going into this YouTube, you basically be building off of the audience that you've already successfully built in the past. Because right now, building something is much more difficult. Because you're first off, apart from all the problems I said before, there are way more people trying to do the same thing.
Thanks, PewDiePie.
Yeah. No, the one thing for me, I'm going to harp on this, I'm going to repeat this point a lot. But Jay even brought up a really good point with it. It's just the consistency is that we live in a world where people from all parts of it and people from all these different time zones that do all these different things at all these different points in the day is your audience. That's who you want to be viewing your stuff. And then Whyt is a vampire, and I go to bed early. I wake up early, go to bed early. So we clearly have conflicting schedules, but I know when Whyt uploads something, and he'll know when I upload something if we keep it consistent, because he can always count. He always uploads this Wednesday. It's going to be up on Wednesday. I know it's going to be up Wednesday. Building that repertoire is important, I think.
I think another advice I say is also because of just what you said, and knowing when just for this instance of uploading YouTube videos, other social media is like useful tools, because if you're on YouTube and you're only on YouTube, it's going to be a whole lot more difficult. So that's why I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Vine. But even though I haven't done anything on Vine, but I'm there just in case. Because you can nowadays, if I upload a video, then I tell everybody else that's following me anywhere else so that they know. You know what I mean? So it's almost like getting a subscription notice from every other social media outlet that I'm on.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, I think that will wrap up this podcast.
No, you won't. Last thing.
Oh, all right. Shut up, Josh.
With Apple Black's success, you know, from all the good and all the bad that you've had, is there anything that you personally would change or do differently about it?
Um, again, this is something I've thought about, and I try not to regret certain things because I not even trying not because I don't, right? But I imagine that the Whyt of today, if he did Apple Black all over again, you know, the same ideas, I would have my cast be more diverse.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Like it's not that it's not diverse, but like even more diverse.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a really good point. You can never have too diverse of a cast, I think.
Yeah, because you know, yeah, just not just the cast itself, certain titles, things that I've named, things like I wouldn't change anything major. It'll be the little things that change, basically.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, because I've asked that question to some people before, and I mean, may not have had like high levels of success, but just I view the success of being able to get, I mean, at least a damn page done, let alone 5 or let alone a 25-page chapter done. Like, is there anything that you would change, or is there anything that you wish you would have done differently? Because I mean, even with me being on chapter 6 of Infinite, the journey, there are tons of things that I mean I would have really had changed. Like one of the major ones for me is starting out with issue 1. Like I started out in without even giving people, you know, time to care. I mean, yeah, it's still doing good it's still doing good, but that is just one thing that I personally would have changed, and also I would have stayed away from um, my many influences that changed Infinite from its idea of conception to what it is now.
Yeah,
So yeah, I
yeah. Like for Apple Black, it'll be the little things that change. If I change anything from a story standpoint or where like a storytelling technique standpoint in the way it's presented, similar to Infinite, it would again, it'll be very little. It wouldn't make that much of a difference, except say to me, you know.
right.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah,
All right.
that was the last one.
You sure, Jay? I'm not gonna sit saying goodnight.
Yeah, no, that was good. That was good.
All
That
right.
was good.
Well.
No, wait, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. All right. Well, thank you everyone who came out to listen. Thank you to everyone that's listening on the VOD. It was a pleasure having you, Whyt.
Thank you. Pleasure being here.
We'll include, as always, links in the description for everything. Yeah. My name is Joshua Harper, joined by my esteemed co-host, Jerry One Hero.
Every day I'm struggling.
Boom, boom, boom. What's that song? What's that song? Wait.
No, there's no.
That's a
Trust me.
remix.
There's a Rick Ross song called "Every Day I'm Hustling," and then there's the
That's
Every Day I'm Shuffling." Boop 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 by LMFAO. So party rock anthem. It would be.
I was thinking about. We'll talk about this after the podcast. All right. I'm Joshua. This is Jay. This is Whyt, and we'll see you. We'll see you guys next week. Whyt, thank you for joining us.
Thank
Have a
you.
good week, people.
Go check out his latest YouTube video on drawing characters in different perspectives.
Yeah. And thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll include links in the description. See you next week.
Greatness lives within. Ha, suck it, Josh.
Adios.